What all plant medicines have given me is truth. To admit truth to yourself is the ultimate.
In today's episode, we're joined by Daniela Gil. She's a psychic and healer's healer, working with and training many spiritual teachers, coaches, and wellness practitioners in the fields of spirituality and self-development.
Huachuma works differently with everybody because it has this absolutely brilliant, genius, divine intelligence to it.
What are the best ways that we can manifest through God?
Well, first is developing a relationship with God, speaking with God, communicating with God, praying to God, listening to God, and getting to know the mind, heart, and spirit of God. A lot of what comes through the Akashic Records is often a paradox and a contradiction. Inherently, all of our love is without attachment because everything is destined to die. So at its core, love is without attachment. It's through death that we get to be reborn. It's death that actually gives us life.
So the records do believe in reincarnation then?
Yes, and here's where it gets weird.
Trust flows, surrender, let go. Trust flows, surrender, let go. Trust flows, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for.
Welcome back to the Highest Self Podcast. My name is Sahara Rose, and on this podcast, I love to take spirituality and make it really modern, grounded, relatable, fun, so it can serve your needs. I've been on the spiritual journey for over 10 years, and it's taken me to many corners around the world, but there was one corner that really changed my life, and that was the Sacred Valley of Peru, where a few months ago now, I had the privilege of sitting with Grandfather Huachuma, aka San Pedro, a beautiful cactus plant medicine that radically transformed my life. If there's any plant that's changed my life, it's that plant, as well as grandmother ayahuasca. And I, was not looking really, but as I mentioned before, I went through a really challenging divorce, and his infidelity came out through the medicine of the Huachuma. And even though I didn't sit in that ceremony, I was in so much gratitude for that plant, for bringing forth this truth that radically shifted the course of my entire life. And if it wasn't for him sitting in that ceremony, I would not have been in the ceremony of going into my shadows, into my pain, into my ancestry, and on the other side, emerging as the brightest light that I have ever become thus yet. Stepping into my artistry, stepping into the true essence of love, being the embodiment of love. So I was in so much gratitude and reverence for the Huachuma, but I knew one day I would sit with it, but I was like, whoa, like it can really change your life, Like, I don't know when I'm ready. And one of my literal past life sisters, Daniela Gil, who's been on this podcast before, she ended up moving to Peru 2.5 years ago. Just went there. She's like, I'm living in Peru now. And I've had her on the podcast. I've studied Akashic Records reading with her, and she started working a lot with the medicine of Huachuma. And I ended up bumping into her at Envision Festival, where I was DJing this year, and it was like my album release party. And we just dropped into this hours-long conversation, and she just planted a little seed of, I feel like sitting with Huachuma would be really supportive in your path. And I thought, yeah, I definitely want to do it one day. Like, I know I need to, but I don't know, I'm so busy, all the things. And then this date came to mind. I was like, how's like May 17th? She was like, oh, I'm actually facilitating a retreat, a small retreat. I only have one person who signed up, so you can come too. And I had a friend of mine who's a shaman. I was like, okay, the 3 of us. And then it ended up being just like 5 of us on this retreat. And I would say it changed my life more than anything I've ever done. Like, period. And that retreat, it showed me so much. Sitting with those medicines showed me so much about myself. And, my intention of going into that retreat was show me everything that is holding me back from true love in this lifetime. And boy, did it show me that. And before we drop into this episode, be sure to hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. That is the best way to stay up to date on the latest episodes. We've got this in video format, so if you're just hearing my voice, be sure to also watch our fabulous outfits on video as well on Spotify, YouTube, or the Apple Store. This is the best way to stay in the flow with future conversations and also allows the podcast to reach more people. So hit subscribe so I can keep vibing with you on all future episodes. Now let's get into this one. And I won't give a lot of details, but let's just say I'm on the other side, okay? So without further ado, let's welcome Akashic record reader, medicine woman, and my dear sister, Daniela Gil, on the Highest Self podcast. Welcome, Queen.
Thank you, love. I'm so happy to be here.
Okay. So let's start with Huachuma. And we're going to call it by its indigenous name, but we're referring to San Pedro. What is this medicine?
It's a cactus, and it's deeply heart-opening. I experience it as more grounding, more easily integratable than some of the other medicines because it really takes you into seeing your own life, the state of your relationships, how you're relating to the others, how you're relating to your own heart, to your own body, to Pachamama, to the divine.
I feel like it's like real life family constellations.
Yeah.
And for those of you who haven't heard of family constellations work, it is this like practice that you do as a therapy where it shows you your parents, like your father on the right side, your mother on the left side, and then their parents before them. And then you kind of see the generational patterns played out. And I've done some family constellation sessions, but the Huachuma for me felt like I was like living in family constellations and in real time moving things and healing things for my lineage. So tell us more about how Huachuma is related to the family and how that's such a huge part of this medicine.
Well, I feel that Huachuma works differently with everybody because it has this absolutely brilliant, genius, divine intelligence to it. So I feel like the way that it worked through you and for you was a little bit different than how it could have worked for somebody else. So for me, at one point, it was really healing to my physical body because that's what I needed. And I feel like your experience was bringing forth it can bring forth a lot of healing around family when that's what we're being prepared for. I feel that Huachuma carries this ancient primal intelligence that brings us back to the spiritual path of family, of being a loving relation, seeing that our spiritual evolution, like the state of where we're at spiritually is reflected in all of our relationships. Huachuma shows us that so brilliantly. And it shows us the value of family, of creating life, of being in union and being in partnership, if that is relevant for somebody's path. But it does take us into these like ancient primal remembrances.
And can you tell people a little bit more, how do you sit with Huachuma and how is it different doing it in Peru than if someone like maybe goes to a ceremony in America?
Yeah. So there are many ways to sit with it. The way that we did it was on a hike with 4 altars. And we drink the Huachuma is, you take a piece of the Huachuma cactus and then you brew it for a long time and you drink that. And I feel that it's different to sit with it where we were in the Sacred Valley because that is a home of Huachuma. Huachuma grows in the wild there. People have been drinking Huachuma there for a long time and then praying with Huachuma to those lands. So I feel like there are spirits of those lands that support the experience and have a relationship with Huachuma because it's native to those lands. So it's a totally different experience. And when you're in the Sacred Valley, that is the place where people have been communing with these plant medicines for generations. And it's that energy, that frequency, that wisdom is embedded within the nature of those lands. And in ceremony, we are supported by the frequency of the lands. So the frequency of that space, like even the human frequency of the Sacred Valley, holds a lot of wisdom around everything that plant medicine brings through. And because so many people have been communing with plant medicines for so long on that land, I feel like that land is just carries the wisdom so brilliantly and beautifully. So you're not needing to, the wisdom of the plant medicine, it's not needing to penetrate through so much like human density, so many layers of human consciousness. It's a clearer channel. That was how I experienced Huachuma the very first time I drank Huachuma in the Sacred Valley.
So in my own spiritual journey of really honoring the sacred feminine energy within me, I realized that we're not all the same and we all have different pathways that we can take that I put together in creating 5 archetypes, which I call the rose gold goddess archetypes. They are the embodiment queen, the womb whisperer, the intuitive oracle, the expressionista, and the joy priestess. And I've put together a free quiz so you can find out what your unique combination are. So the embodiment queen is the person who's always in her body, dancing, moving, very connected to her nervous system. The womb whisperer always knows where she's at in her menstrual cycle and probably has a yoni steamer in her bathroom. The intuitive oracle has 3 oracle card decks on them, a pendulum, and knows about their past lives. The expressionista is creating art through everything, through singing, dancing, writing poetry. Everything for her is an opportunity to create art. And then we've got the joy priestess who wants to laugh, dance, and not take herself super seriously. You can find her doing karaoke at an improv class or twerking it on the dance floor. You can guess which one I am. So you can head over to rggquiz.com to learn what your unique rose gold goddess archetype is. Again, that's rggquiz.com, and you can find that link in the show notes. And I've created custom graphics that you get in your results so you can share which rose gold goddess archetype you are. I'm super excited to see. Yeah, it's so important where we sit with medicine, because the first time I sat with ayahuasca that I told you about that was in LA and the facilitator was in her own, ego, really. She was really telling me, oh, it's like this, it's like that. And it was really unsupportive because I had to then really do a lot of questioning after of when I had the experience, the medicine was so profound, but then the facilitator was sort of like distorting. And I also just feel like the energetic field of LA has so much distortion in it, whereas when you are communing with these plants where they are native, and also just where there isn't so much radiation and EMFs and Wi-Fi and 5G and all of the things, you're able to tap in so much deeper. And you're in reverence with the plant you're working where it's from, and who's facilitating it is also extremely important.
Yes.
So, and before we get into all of that, I want to just speak into the intelligence of this plant. I had no idea what to expect. And I remember the first day, because we sat in 2 Huachuma ceremonies, I just started bawling. I was just crying. And I was like, how am I back here? I thought I've done this healing work around the divorce, but it was this deep abandonment, ancient female abandonment. And then after, it was the final purging of those tears, for myself and for my lineage, for all the women in my family who've been abandoned.
Wow.
And I could feel myself, once I cried those tears, it then took me to the highest level of war and power in the Middle East. And the way that it's played out, and then took me super high level of the wars that have happened where my family is from, where my ex's family was from, how that consciousness became part of the family unit, how in my family there was always 2 against 1. That's war consciousness, the way war consciousness is living within me. And then it showed me this whole thing about narcissism. It's my dad was very narcissistic. My ex clearly had narcissistic traits to him, but then it showed me how that lives in me.
Yeah.
And all of the things that I don't like about the world live in me.
Yeah.
And it broke it down so step by step of once you really realize and integrate the thing, it's this full circle of coming together. And then when you just accept it. And I remember to you in that ceremony when we were hiking up the mountain, I was like, Daniela, I have something to tell you. Okay, this is a lot. I'm a narcissist, charlatan, and this and that, and named all the things. And now I think about it, it's that song. It's I'm a saint, I'm a sinner, yes. I'm a this. And that is real shadow work.
Yeah.
And I was and then I was I felt in that moment that you were going to be sorry, I can't believe you're that. Oh God, I'm so disappointed in you. And you were just I think we all are. I was what? I was no, I am. Not ever. And then you're no, and then you were sharing with me that you and your partner had gotten into a fight someday that you were then hosting a ceremony together, and but underlying you guys were fighting. And it was we all in some way are charlatans. We all some way are manipulative. We all some way are, and if you say that you're not, that's actually the scary thing to be fearful of. The people who are like, no, I am 100% good all the time. Zero inklings of shadow within me. It's like, no, you're just lying, which is you can't do this work when you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
It's only when you start being that is the work. And I feel like that is what all plant medicines have given me is truth. To admit truth to yourself is the ultimate love. That is self-love right there, to admit all these truths to yourself. So I was after the first ceremony for me, because we sat with ayahuasca the first day, it was very internal, but with the San Pedro, it was showing me all of the shadows in my lineage and the Middle East and the world and this and that. And I was just like, what do I do? And it was a lot. And after I wrote a letter to the Huachuma, I was like, I feel like you're going really hard on me right now. I know I'm not perfect, but I can't be the worst, But then the next day, it brought it all together. Yeah. So that first ceremony took me to my masculine consciousness, my father wound, the men in my family. It showed me what a chief I am, what a leader I am, how I could be a president if I wanted to be. I have that ability to me. And as I was going up the mountain, it was a lot of that. I was I need to figure out my way out of this, strategize. I was even embodying and walking like a chief, And then once I got to the top of the mountain, climbing up the mountains, climbing against your resistance, I looked out and I was like, but that's why I chose to be an artist. I don't want to be a president. Hell no, I don't want to be a president. It's looking at those mountains, and it made me think of the Beatles and how they used to trip on different stuff and Lucy in the sky with diamonds. And it's the Titanic is sinking and let's create some art. Yeah. And then I remember we sat in the ancient ruins on top and I freestyle rapped for an hour just about the rose. I was the rose knows the path is always shown. And we were just in this freestyle and that, the medicine to me, guys, the whole time was rapping and poetry, because that's how it knew it would come to my consciousness. And it's so amazing how everyone's experience is so different, but it's the exact lessons they needed. Then the second ceremony of it was all my feminine, my mother wound, but then my deep honor and reverence to the mother, Pachamama, and my disconnection to the mother, but because I deeply am so motherly that it was being a mother and loving so much, it's a liability. So I was afraid of loving so much, afraid of having children, because if I love something so much, what if something goes wrong? And that was related to, again, all the members of my lineage who something did go wrong in their family, their children were something, that I was so afraid of how deeply I love. And then meeting my children for the first time and seeing their spirits in the field with me, it was the most potent love I've ever experienced in this lifetime. Even just thinking about it, if I ever need to go to a happy place, I imagine that field in Peru with my future children, running and just hearing them. I could literally cry every single time I talk about it. And that just changed the course of my life. And it was really the initiation I needed to go from girl to woman. Because I was still subconsciously operating as a girl. And I feel all of us in our society do, because we don't have initiations, Most people don't even consider themselves a woman until they have kids. But then even that, they're still well, I'm still a girl. And, we have all archetypes within ourselves. But it showed me, it was you want to be with a man, you got to act as a woman, You want to be with someone with father energy, it's time for you to step into your mother energy. And that's what led to, me getting my second dog and being in this mother energy and a few other surprises. So, and it's been the most beautiful, profound, straight, all the realizations I got from my ceremony, I'm experiencing right now. And I'm truly experiencing what it's like to fully be myself. It's night and day from any experience I've been in before. And yeah, and opening me up. And it's no matter what happens, I'm I love experiencing me in this love.
Yeah, Huachuma is such a miraculous healer. And I feel the medicine has a really brilliant way of dissolving barriers, including revealing to us our inherent oneness with all of life, with each other, which is why the energy of the space where we're at is so important, because we dissolve those barriers. So if we're in the middle of LA, we can feel the currents, the energetics that we're swimming in. And part of those barriers are also the protective barriers we create in our own psyche from not truly seeing ourselves. And Huachuma simultaneously connects us to divine love, to unconditional love, while dissolving those barriers so we can see all of those shadows, all those things that we would normally have shame around, that we've blocked, that we've externalized, we've projected it onto the external world. Now suddenly we dissolve those barriers. We see it all within ourselves, because as within, so throughout. So we see it all in ourselves. And at the same time, we have all this unconditional divine love streaming through us. So we can embrace it. We can really own it without any sort of shame or resistance. And it completely transforms us and allows us to honor that who and how we are is by divine design. We don't have to change ourselves. And I feel like, yeah, one of the beautiful blessings is the permission to be ourselves in love, because we have developed a collective society that has us believe we will be loved if, or has glorified certain ways of being, believing that like love is something that we need to earn or become or be worthy of, completely forgetting that it is inherent to our being. It is like woven into every thread of this experience of life, like every breath that we take in. It's filled with oxygen, which is a gift from the plant kingdom. And every time I connect with Huachuma, I just these revelations that as they become a part of your life, completely transform our lives and our relationships.
Well, if anyone's interested in joining one of her retreats, we have a code Sahara for $100 off. So you can find that link below. And this is who I personally sat with. So I really vouch for her. And she's someone that I deeply trust her in retreat. So I want to also speak about the Akashic Records, because that is a huge part of your teaching, something you weave into your retreats as well. So what are the Akashic Records?
They are the energetic imprint of everything that has ever happened, is happening, and could happen. I think of the energetic or of the Akashic Records as the mind of God. And I feel that while we're in these human incarnations, we're experiencing, interpreting everything through the human mind, which is designed to see everything in a very limited, linear way. So I don't believe that we have access to the Akashic Records in their entirety, because the Akashic Records are the remembering, the knowing of infinity and eternity. It's like trying to grasp the totality of the Big Bang. But we can come into elevated, more expansive states of consciousness that give us access to insight and perspective and guidance from the Akashic Records, like experience a perspective here that is more resonant with the frequency of the Akashic Records, which is so rooted in infinite possibility. It's so rooted in love, in unity.
So how can one access the Akashic Records and begin channeling from there?
I access through a prayer. And some of the prerequisites are the capacity to release any attachment to our human minds. So if anyone has like really strong opinions, if they're like, I'm right, like this is how it is, we automatically shut ourselves off from accessing the Akashic Records or any higher perspective. So the more that we can have this very still, spacious state of consciousness and state of mind, we can receive guidance. And the more we are able to let go of any preconceived notions or ideas or beliefs and remain in this very humble, like spacious state where we acknowledge that we don't know anything really. And we offer our faith to a higher, I think of it as like giving my faith to God so that I can receive God's wisdom. And it's like, I experience it as simultaneously dropping into like the deepest humility and humbleness of I know nothing. And then from there, we have access to knowing so much more than what we think we know. And it's like the humility, the humbleness of I know nothing, and then the grandiosity of, and simultaneously, I am one with the divine. I am one with God. I'm an expression, an extension of God. So I'm privy to the wisdom of the divine, and I can access it while in this human incarnation at any time.
And I feel like the little trick there is like, my ego, Sahara, personality self doesn't know shit. But the divine that streams through me knows it all. So when I'm channeling, I'm streaming truth, but it's not coming from, because I experienced all of these things firsthand, so I can guarantee it. It's coming from, I'm opening myself up to be a vessel for something greater coming through me. And all of my books, all of my podcasts, everything I've made has been me being a vessel. You know, it's not coming from me, it's coming through me. And I feel like that's like the difference of the vibration of like channeling versus like, let me tell you, kid, you know, which is such a different energy. So I would love if you could go into a little channel and I can ask you some questions on behalf of the listeners.
Perfect. Okay, so I connect with a prayer. So I'm going to start to drop in with my prayer. Spirit, support me in coming into an elevated, expanded state of consciousness so that I may be one with your perspective. Set aside the totality of my personality so that I may serve as a clear channel for your divine love, insight, and guidance. Allow me to see all who are streaming into this podcast as they are seen in the light of the Akashic Records. Help me to know them as they are known in the mind of God, and enable me to serve as a channel for any energy, insight, or perspective that would most serve them. And so it is. The Akashic Records are now open.
Why are so many people collectively today, and tuning into the souls of the listeners of this podcast, struggling with love and relationships?
What I heard was selfishness and self-centeredness, as well as disconnection from God. As we begin to open more to the reality of this experience of life, we can begin to honor our inherent divine perfection exactly as we are, as well as our inherent interconnectedness and unity with all of life. This enables us to show up in the nature of service, knowing that we experience our greatest fulfillment in service to the other. So the first message I was getting was around coming into love and relationship with a more extractive energy, like a taking, because people presently on the planet, they're disconnected from the divine. So they're not sourcing love from the only place we can reliably, consistently, infinitely source love, which is from God. And if we're not sourcing love from God, then there's a lack of love, there's a void of love, and then we're seeking love, we're seeking validation, we're seeking to have our needs met from another human being, but that human being is the center of their own universe. So the way we come into right relationship is through sourcing love from God and then emanating that love and utilizing the relationship as a place to grow in love, not to get love, to become more like love. So that's one way. Let me tune in. Why are people... There's a total forgetfulness and amnesia around what relationships are for. They are not to get your egoic needs met. They are a place to be met and supported in growing closer to love.
Do we attract relationships that are a mirror to bring out our traumas, or is it possible to have relationships where it's just joy and for the highest love?
Because of the present state of humanity, there's been so much accumulated relational trauma over eons. Like the fact that we've had wars, everything that our ancestors have gone through, the ways in which our parents have loved us, everybody is doing their best, yet every single one of us has some sort of relational trauma. So it's healthiest to enter into a relationship knowing that there will be times when this trauma comes up. And the more that we orient ourselves not to like, oh, this trauma can't come up, these shortcomings can't come up, otherwise this is like wrong or bad, the more we can orient ourselves to, I am a vessel for unconditional love, for healing, for joy, for peace and harmony in this relationship, then we can greet anything that comes up in that energy and it begins to become transformed. Anything that we greet that comes up in a relationship, like any problem or issue or challenge, if we greet it with love, with acceptance, with compassion, with forgiveness, all of those frequencies are the frequencies of consciousness, of light. As soon as you illuminate something, it becomes more like light. So then it becomes more like love. If we greet it with like shaming it, resisting it, judging it, blaming it, trying to fight it, then we actually, anything you resist persists. So as soon as you resist it, you start to amplify it. And through that, you can create karmic patterns in your relationships. You can start to create karmic dynamics where you can start to loop in a negative cycle in relationship. But it doesn't have to be that way. There are ways in which when you are connected to God, continuously develop your relationship to God, whether you call it God or source or spirit or divine love or just the natural laws of life, the way in which we're all interconnected, we're all actually a part of a one greater whole. The more that you connect with that, the more equipped you are in showing up in love in your relationships. And then what comes up can be healed instead of creating a karmic loop.
How do you know if someone is your forever person, and does that even exist? Or is it just a choice?
There is so much possibility embedded within this experience of life. You truly get to choose your own adventure. And there are some adventures that have been chosen by your soul before you incarnated. Well, in many ways, there's no forever person, because even if you're with one person forever, there are going to be so many deaths and rebirths within that relationship. And you are not the same person from day to day, from year to year, from decade to decade. If that is a desire of someone's and they can pray for it, they can ask for it, and then they can start to allow life to shape them into whatever it is that they must become in order to maintain and sustain a lifelong relationship, because that is not something that we just magically find. It's something that we become. And we can become it through our intention, through our prayer. And other than that, I think for some people, there's a knowing. And then for other people, it's just what happens. And even within that knowing, things change. Maybe you think someone is your forever person, so that it puts you on the timeline of marrying with them, entering into a union with them that serves you in other ways, but then you end up getting divorced. And ultimately, the only true and real love that is forever is the love of God coursing through you.
So is it worth asking ourselves the question entering a relationship, is this my forever person? Or just to let the path unveil itself?
It really depends where somebody's at. So I'm immediately being shown me personally. The last, 15 years of me dating, that wasn't my question. Is this my forever person? And I'm so glad that it wasn't, because I had particular people to enter into relationship with that were going to shape me, heal me, serve me in really profound ways. So if I had asked from the beginning, is that my forever person? I would not have entered into that union, because I would have known no. And then I would not have reaped all the benefits and blessings and transformation that I received from those unions. If that is someone's desire, they will enter into a season where, yes, it is supportive. If it's your support, if what you want is a forever person, then it is deeply supportive to open to that which feels that it has the potential of forever. But we can't bypass certain processes or experiences that life has for us. So if that's not what's naturally moving through us by divine design, then it's important to let that go, because I feel like a lot of us undergo a lot of conditioning. Like, you are made to only be with one person for your entire life. That's conditioning. Or all of this like dating and cycling from different people, that can arise from conditioning. So it's important to be clear in what feels real and true for us. What is spirit communicating, our soul communicating to us around what it is meant for us in relationship, and then allow that to be the foundation from which you open to a relationship.
Because you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to make a quick assumption about you. Your friends come to you for advice. Whenever you're at a party, someone corners you at the side of the snack table and starts telling you all of their childhood traumas. And you actually love diving deep into spiritual topics, and you have a really good way of communicating with people. So the best way to actually create a career doing this is through coaching. But I know a lot of people, they're like, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know what type of coach I would be. So I've created a quick, easy quiz to discover your unique coaching style. So there are 3 categories: the intuitive, transformational, or empathetic coach. So the intuitive one really works with your intuition, you're able to receive downloads, you just have insights about people. The transformational one has more of that fire energy. You love to keep it real and help people go through the deepest phoenix rising from the ashes moments in their lives. And the empathetic coach really loves to listen, hold space. They're very grounded, nurturing. So if you're curious which type you are, you can try my free quiz at quiz.highestselfinstitute.com. Again, that's quiz.highestselfinstitute.com, which is my school that certifies spiritual life coaches. And you can find that link in the show notes. I'm super excited to see what type of coach you are because I'm gonna hire you one day.
So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen.
I want you to think about a time recently where you felt like you couldn't be yourself. You were hiding behind a mask. October is the season of wearing masks and costumes, but some of us feel like we're wearing a mask and hiding more than we want to, with some of our friends, at work, social settings, around family. And therapy can really help us accept all parts of ourselves so we can take off the mask and be seen for who we truly are. Because let's be real, masks are for Halloween, not for our emotions. I absolutely love therapy to get clear on the even subtle ways we are wearing these masks, such as people pleasing or not sharing our total truth. So if you're interested in giving therapy a try, I highly recommend BetterHelp. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at no additional charge. Plus, you can even text them between sessions. So take off the mask with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Sahara today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Sahara. You can find that link in the show notes.
So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen.
Do you feel that there is some sort of force at play that is behind relationships not working and people not desiring children? Is that a real force at play, Records?
Well, yes, absolutely. There are forces at play behind absolutely everything. And there are ways in which, well, first I want to say there are no external forces that can have power over us and our lives. They can influence us and they can have power over us, but it's through our own agreement. We have ultimate dominion over our minds, over our emotional bodies, over our lives. This life is us with God. But when we are not boundaried in that, then yes, external forces can influence us. And there are many ways in which the path of union, the path of marriage, the path of family, it grows us, it evolves us. We cannot avoid our shadows. We cannot remain in self-centeredness. We cannot exist in narcissism and have like a happy, harmonious family. So it does feel like there are more energies prevalent on the planet right now where a lot of people are healing a lot of ancient relational traumas, which has them adopt more self-centered, self-seeking ways of relating. They're just relational strategies. And then that keeps them from entering into family because family very quickly annihilates that. And if we do operate in those ways in family, it's going to be a very chaotic, difficult life.
Why is it that sometimes the thing that someone wants the most doesn't happen? For example, the person who wants a family more than anything struggles with fertility, or the person who doesn't want children ends up pregnant. Why does that happen?
Interestingly, what I heard was it's always through divine orchestration, and anything that we actually want at the level of our souls, we always receive. Presently at this time, a lot of people are not, like what I heard was manifesting very well. And the reason is because a lot of the wanting is coming from emptiness and void, thinking if I get that, then I'll be happy, then I'll be fulfilled, then I will experience love. And that actually impedes our desires from manifesting because Spirit is most interested in us evolving our consciousness to recognize that love, fulfillment, peace, well-being, all the things we are seeking from the manifestations of this external world can only be found through our relationship with Spirit and our faith in God. So whatever we don't get, it's meant to bring us closer to the divine, closer to Spirit, closer to our love, our wholeness, our peace, our well-being exactly as we are, exactly as life is. It's bringing us into right relationship with reality. Reality can never be wrong. It can never be bad for us. My belief is that it's a benevolent universe because it's us.
What do the records say about there being different soul ages? Younger souls who maybe need to experience more survival-based things, mature souls who experience more of the wants, old souls going deep into spirituality and purpose.
From the perspective of the Akashic Records, there's no real time. None of it is linear, and everything is happening in this like holy now eternal moment. So different people come in embodying different soul frequencies that may feel young or may feel old, but it's really all happening now.
So there is no, according to the records, there aren't old souls. It's just they carry qualities that makes them connect with those things.
Okay, the way that I see it, because it's really hard to put words to it, is there are some beings that have energies moving through them that feel so ancient. It's like some people have all of this wisdom from all of these past lives, from all of these past experiences, from connection to the Akashic Records moving through them, and then they appear as old souls. It's wild to ask these questions from the perspective of the Akashic Records because the Akashic Records validates every individual person's beliefs, because everyone is like a universe unto themselves. So if someone believes in old souls and old souls are very much real for them, therefore they are real through the perspective of the Akashic Records.
So it's more just if you believe in it, you can call it that.
Yeah, and it's all validated by the Akashic Records.
What do they say about soul families and you reincarnating with the same group of people? Like your mother might have been your sister, your father may have been your child.
It feels like a very real lived reality from within the Akashic Records, and it very much makes sense to the way in which the human mind interprets reality and existence. I was seeing how we can create certain karmas with people, and then the desire for the soul to heal them, to complete them in future lives with those same souls, with those same people, or the way in which life truly is eternal. So we can develop these relationships with people that transcend lifetimes and move throughout lifetimes.
So the records do believe in reincarnation then?
Yes, and here's where it gets weird. It believes in reincarnation because I believe in reincarnation. I choose to believe that. My father is Catholic. I don't think he believes in reincarnation. If you open up his Akashic Records, that's not inherently real or true for him. Reality is, there's no, from the perspective of the Akashic Records, there's no, this is how it is. This is how I believe it to be, and now my soul gets to experience it that way for as long as I want. I believe in reincarnation. I can play into reincarnation for as long as I want.
What do the records say about manifestation?
Immediately, I heard that it's best done with God. It's best done with God, and it's best done through and with your own wholeness as you are now. Because, for example, if someone is desiring a relationship or fame or money, and they're doing it from a place of emptiness, then as soon as they manifest that thing, they will actually experience even more emptiness. If they're doing it from their own wholeness, from their own love for life, from their own inherent sense of worthiness, I'm worthy of this desire, then as soon as it manifests in their lives, it amplifies that from which they manifested it. A huge part of manifestation is doing it with God and not trying to force it or make it happen now. Anytime we doubt, any action that we take from doubt, from lack of faith, actually delays the manifestation. So the more that we can live in this place of faith where we truly feel loved and supported and provided for by life, knowing that life is an extension of us, it's a part of us. It's not some separate antagonistic thing. It is us. So when we manifest from that place, our manifestations can happen a lot more gracefully, and we can enjoy, ultimately it's about enjoying the journey though. more than the actual manifestation.
Where are these desires coming from that we have?
The first thing that I saw was God, but I saw that there's no real answer to that because it's coming from everywhere. Like our inner little girl may desire one thing, and then like our future self is desiring something else. And then even our ancestors can desire through us. So they're truly coming from everywhere. And while we are in these human bodies, we tend to believe like, I am me and that's it. But the reality is like, we are influenced by our ancestors. We are made of like trillions of tiny little cells that are these individuated beings with this individuated consciousness. And we're constantly like consuming life and moving life through us, like consuming Pachamama. And there's no real me that is separate. So then there's no real desire that is mine, that is not one with all of life. I've seen in plant medicine ceremonies how a part of my path are like my parents' unrealized desires.
Definitely our ancestors as well. Are we meant to follow through with our desires or to let go of our desires? Where does detachment fit in this?
It's very much both, because life is always balancing us. So for somebody who doesn't feel worthy, who maybe feels more like, the fire of desire can really light up their life and bring a lot of healing and balance. For someone who's very attached to certain outcomes, which many of us on the planet presently are, for people who believe like, I will only be okay if this happens, like I really want this one thing to happen, then yeah, the spirit of detachment is what can bring us the most peace and the most healing and allow us to be like really truly present for this moment, because it's only through presence that we can experience love and joy and peace and all of life's blessings. Life's blessings don't happen when that desire comes into fruition. It happens now. And we can only access the now through presence, which does require some detachment.
Is it possible to love without attachment?
A lot of what comes through the Akashic Records is often a paradox and a contradiction. It's like, absolutely, yes, inherently, all of our love is without attachment because everything is destined to die. Absolutely everything. So at its core, love is without attachment. It's through death that we get to be reborn. It's death that actually gives us life. And then there's the very real human experience of bonding to that which we love, and the very real primal human experience of bonding for survival, bonding for evolution. So that's why people tend to love with a lot of attachment. It actually is embedded within our DNA. Because when we love someone, when we enter into relationship, it actually serves the proliferation of the species if we remain in love, like a mother's love for their child, like, parents staying together, that's supportive for survival.
Beautiful. Can you share more from the record's perspective of what are the best ways that we can manifest through God?
Well, first is developing a relationship with God, speaking with God, communicating with God, praying to God, listening to God, and getting to know the mind, heart, and spirit of God. Because if you believe that you live in an antagonistic world, which is what the world would have you believe, then you can't manifest. But through communion with God, you start to connect with the ways in which life is here to support you. Life is here to provide for you. Life is here in service to you. And as you connect with those beliefs, it becomes a lot easier to manifest. Those beliefs also need to be balanced with the awareness that you are here to serve life. You are here to support life. You are here to provide for life. Life gives us absolutely everything. All that we are is provided for us by life. And in sacred, rightful reciprocity, we are for all of life. So when we're relating to life, like in service and giving, we tend to magnetize our manifestations more, like our desired manifestations more readily.
Why do some people find themselves in what they call narcissistic relationships?
It can be different for everybody. For some people, it's a reflection of their own narcissism. For others, it's an opportunity to develop boundaries. It's always reflective of people's unconscious or subconscious belief systems. Anybody who is not completely filled with love is susceptible to entering into narcissistic dynamics. It can happen in so many different ways. It's important to know that narcissism is merely a relational strategy. I feel like it's been so pathologized and turned into something so like evil and bad and wrong, but we cannot rehabilitate this thing of narcissism until we see it for what it actually is and own that it truly exists in all of us. And as we look at and work with the narcissism within us, our relationships naturally transform because we emanate a different energy. We emanate a different way of relating, a different way of loving, and that by natural law needs to be reflected in our relationships. And either our relationships grow and evolve and heal, or the souls who are not a match to that new way of relating and loving will fall out of our lives.
Why do some people remain single? Are they meant to be single in this lifetime? Or is it that they had opportunities for love that they said no to because of their own idea of what it was supposed to look like?
From one perspective in the Akashic Records, absolutely everything happens as it's meant to be. So if somebody is single and remaining single, it's because they're meant to be. But through our continued development of our relationship to God, we realize that we are the creator. We are one with the creator. And then we can choose to either remain single, if that is truly our highest excitement, or we can choose to open up a relationship and then do the internal work that is necessary to be a match for the kind of romantic relationship that we are desiring. It's always happening as it's meant to be, and we also can change what's meant to be.
Can you speak about spirit babies, and do we have spirit baby souls that are meant to come through us?
Yes, and even this is always shifting and evolving because there are an infinite number of timelines. So you may have a spirit baby present around you when you're with one partner, but if you choose to end that relationship before you procreate, then you can enter into another union and then feel different spirit babies.
Okay, so it's not your same ones that will find you no matter what. You think different partners bring up different babies?
Yes and no. It really depends on the person because for some people, they have a lot more choice related to certain things. And then other people have a soul contract. For example, they may have a soul contract already of I'm going to get together with this specific person and then procreate, and it's going to be this specific soul. And that's been written in their Akashic Records. It's a contract that has been made before they incarnated. For other people, they've left more choices open.
How can we see ours?
It's so tricky to talk about all these things because the Akashic Records are truly so impossible to put into words. They really are impossible to put into words because they're so multidimensional. To try to limit it to language is already diminishing the frequency of it a little bit.
So can you go into your library and pick up your library card and see all your soul contract agreements?
A lot within the Akashic Records by divine design is meant to remain a mystery to us. Part of our experience here is there's this collective agreement around a certain level of amnesia around our soul contracts. And that allows us to be delighted and to be surprised and to head a new direction and to fully live this human experience, which is rooted in mystery. So yes, we can see some of them. Others will only be revealed at the right time or will never be revealed if it would in any way impede from your experience of life, because we are meant to have this human experience. That's why we're here.
Yeah, I think of if I knew everything that was going to go down, I'd have been like, I'm not doing this, but I needed to.
Exactly.
Okay. How can we listen to the voice of our intuition more?
By cultivating more stillness and silence, Presently, especially in this Western society, there's a lot of busyness. People are constantly doing, they're really valuing productivity. They're constantly thinking, they're constantly listening to things. But that actually keeps us from the voice of our intuition. We best hear the voice of our intuition when our mind is still, silent, present, and available. And that is something that we actually need to cultivate and to become really comfortable with. One of the things that comes up when we really drop into this stillness and silence and presence is that if there's anything we've been avoiding, whether it's a realization or an emotion, it'll naturally come up. And for some people that have been like very busy and very focused on productivity and very distracted with the doing, sometimes there can be a lot of buildup and it's not always easy. So we have to get through that buildup of whatever may be in our field to come into equanimity within ourselves, silence, stillness, and then hear our intuition.
How do we know if it's our voice of our intuition or it's an actual genuine fear that is warning us?
Intuition comes with peace. Intuition comes with the knowing of God. So God knows that anything that our human minds could possibly fear or that we could deem as like a negative thing that could happen, it's always actually a blessing. It's always actually a gift. It's serving us in some beautiful divine way. And your intuition knows that. So anything that comes through your intuition comes through with a frequency that feels like peace. It feels like acceptance. It feels like love. And it helps to grow your faith in God and your trust in life instead of creating anxiety or fear. That's not your intuition. Those are your own human constructs.
Beautiful. So can our intuition still warn us of something, but it will just come with the energy of peace?
Yeah, there won't be judgment around it or fear around it. It's just a knowing. And then your human mind can interpret it through the lens of, okay, that possible outcome is not of my preference. Changing direction.
But if something's in your destiny, then you can't.
Yeah.
And so some people have more of a destiny and some people have more of a free will.
That's what I've seen in my one-on-one sessions. Well, when it comes to different things, like some people are just destined for certain experiences.
What do the Akashic Records think about astrology, human design? Is there truth to them?
Yeah, there's absolutely truth to them for those who believe in them.
So those who don't, it's not true for them?
Well, no, because they have no relationship to it. And they will find ways to experience it as not true. Because it's not true for them. And because we're collectively creating. So in the creation of astrology, there is like a very true, accurate, brilliant wisdom to it. But there's also God beneath all of it, like creation beneath all of it. And an aspect of God is the human mind, which is creating the practice of astrology. But it's also simultaneously coming from the divine, if that makes sense.
So just the more that we believe in it, the more true it is. The less that we believe in it, the less true it is.
Yeah, for us, in our universe, in our world, in our reality. Yeah, God validates all truths. That's why so much is possible here.
But what about something you thought was true and then it ended up not being true?
Yeah, as soon as I said that, I was like, well, not entirely. We get to choose whatever truths we want to experience in the moment, yet there are certain truths that if they're coming from like illusion, we will be woken out of. Which at the end of the day, we're ultimately going to be woken out of everything and just come home to unity, to source, to love, to oneness, to infinite possibility.
Are we going to experience the new earth in this lifetime?
If we believe it. Yeah, many of us will. Absolutely. The consciousness on the planet is elevating. It's evolving. And there are examples of this absolutely everywhere. Yet you need to open to that, to perceive it and to believe it and to then experience it. There are so many different realities and timelines that we can all experience on the same planet. And some of us are experiencing a new earth just within the constructs of our own family. Like maybe having a family where there was a lot of battle and war and now coming into a lot of harmony, compassion, peace, joy, creativity together. And that may be their experience of a new earth.
Yeah, I think some people are already living in it.
Yeah.
Some people, you could walk them to it, they won't.
Yeah.
Are we living in a time where there is this grand spiritual awakening, or is that just always happening?
It's always happening. It's always been happening.
Okay.
It's always there. And there are like, I just saw it as waves of like remembering amnesia, like awakening, falling asleep.
So there is a time of awakening right now, followed by kind of a mass amnesia. Would you say kind of like the past 2,000 years has been a big amnesia, a dissension of vibration?
There's definitely been a really big descent. Yeah. And like when I tune into like, okay, show me linear time, show me the stories of linear time, I do feel a massive descent where humans were far more evolved and enlightened than we could possibly imagine. Or maybe the beings that like gave birth to humanity. But even that, when you look at the past of humanity, just like in the future, there are infinite timelines. There are also infinite timelines for the past when you're in the Akashic Records.
Tell me more of that.
From the Akashic Records, it looks a lot like stories. So for example, some people believe that we were like seeded, the planet was seeded by alien races. And that's very much the reality for them within their Akashic Records. And then that becomes very true and real. Other people have totally different beliefs, and that becomes very true and real for them in their experience. But ultimately, like there's no one reality, because we are living infinity and eternity. We are the consciousness of God creating ourselves.
So then won't the records always be changing all the time based on what we believe in that moment?
In some ways, yes.
So basically the records are our past and future based on our current beliefs, with a series of things that are destined in there.
Yeah, the records can be used in different ways, where you can go into the records and see the totality of it all, or you can also come into what is most relevant for my human story at this time, related to like the stories that I'm creating for myself, like the timeline that I'm creating for myself.
So based on the timeline that I'm creating for myself, my soul's highest timeline, what is the wisdom that I need?
Because the Akashic Records reveal that everything is merely a dream destined to return to source. And then we can come into the dream and access the Akashic Records from the dream, for that timeline of that person, that individuated expression. And then we can tune into destinies and soul contracts and future potentials, like future likelihoods based on the present energy. And we can receive higher insight and higher guidance to support us in experiencing more love, more joy, more peace, which is generally most people's preferences for this experience of life.
Can we ever live lives that are only joy and peace and ease?
There's always a balance. So we can bring more love and joy and peace and ease to the times of despair and pain and suffering and darkness. The more that I'm seeing it as like an expansion of our identity, an expansion of our consciousness, where we can be in those dark night of the soul type of experiences. We can be in a season of winter and simultaneously feel enveloped in love, feel deep peace at our core. But as humans, we are reflections of this earth. This earth has seasons. She's got night and day. So that is a part of our destiny while in these human bodies.
How come for some people, like life only gets better, but for some people it doesn't?
In order for life to get better, we need to show up for the better, be transformed into someone who creates better, and then like receive it all with so much gratitude. We need to believe in better.
Is there anything else that the records would like for the group of individuals watching this to know?
A message around your personal trust and faith in your connection to a higher perspective. An invitation for all of you to begin to cultivate this connection and utilize it in your everyday life. It can bring so much love, so much peace, so much healing, so much transformation into your life. You can utilize it at any time. Many people believe that they are somehow disconnected from the divine. We've been conditioned at times to believe we need an intermediary, like some religious figure to speak on behalf of the divine, or some sort of psychic or intuitive, but you are an extension of the divine. So you always have access to the perspective of the divine. And Ask and you shall receive. Knock and the door will be opened. If you set the intention, if you actually do it, ask with faith, you can receive insight and guidance, which adds so much love and peace to your human experience. It's always available to you. So invitation to try it out.
Thank you so much for sharing. The records are closed. Amen. Thank you. Yeah, I was trying to really get in there. I was like, what's the meaning of life? Do we manifest this, do that? And like questions I have my own understandings of, but I was just curious to hear what the records had to say. And what I really took from it is how our beliefs really shift our reality.
Yeah.
And there are some big T universal truths. Like, for example, I never thought my marriage would end, ever. No part of me. But it did, because there was an underlying lie that was happening that eventually needed to come to surface, you know? So it's like, I could have had the belief of this marriage is forever, but there was something running in the background of infidelity that's like, oh no, it's not. But it needed to get to this tipping point of, you know, him going on his spiritual journey and the medicine and it coming out. So I do believe things like that are destined. And I actually was able to see that in the ceremony of how destined it is. But then it makes you think of what are the other things right now I know to be true that are not. But ultimately, you need to be along for the ride. That's the human experience.
Yeah, people come to the Akashic Records for answers. But what we really develop through developing this practice is a lot of faith and a lot of peace within the mystery, and courage to walk into the unknown, knowing that ultimately all is well. Even in like the worst tragedies, it's all good.
Yep. And again, it's a story you tell yourself. If you could get a story of a health crisis and this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, it's the end of my career, it's the end of my life. And that's true.
Yeah.
You know? Or like, I'm going to find my way on the other side of this health crisis and be more strong and more vibrant and more in alignment with my truth than ever before. And that will be your truth.
Everything gets to be medicine. Everything gets to be fuel for the evolution of our consciousness and for the betterment of our lives. Absolutely everything.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. I know you do one-on-one Akashic Records readings, which I absolutely love. So we have a discount link for $50 off for that. Coupon code Sahara, again, linked below. So thank you so much, Daniela, for sharing all of your wisdom. It's always so great to have you here. And I'm so grateful that we did this after beautiful ceremonies together. And it's been the most life-changing thing ever. I'm so grateful, so humbled. And thank you so much for being a way shower, you know, and for the due diligence you do, for even choosing the shamans that you bring us to, and really checking their vibration and their aura and the clarity of which your channel is. It's really, you're like, when I saw you on the ayahuasca, you were like full rose priestess. You were like Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene in one. I was like, damn, she is the rose. You know, and you were sharing that you were on the rose dieta.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for walking that path of beauty and compassion that you really are, and for making it accessible to more people.
Thank you so much, Sahara. I love you. Thank you.
So there is so much here in this episode. This is one you're going to want to re-listen to again and again and again, especially all that channeling. There's a lot. That was like a masterclass. That was like, you go to like in-person seminars to see, that was like freaking phenomenal. So be sure to rewatch this. Share this on your Instagram stories. Share this with your friends. Email it out to like 5 people. Be like, y'all need to listen to this episode and let's talk. Like, let's have a conversation about this, because I think everyone hears things differently. So like one little thing that we may have said may have been like the aha moment for you, and someone else's might have been this, and like something that you might not have even listened now. Maybe you listen to this again 6 months later and it's like, oh, that was the exact alchemy that I needed, but I wasn't ready to receive it then. And now it totally landed. And like, that's the beauty of this path, of the dichotomy. It's like, it's all, you know, like life is such a paradox. And at one point, one piece of truth resonates with you, and another point it's another, and it continues to spiral. So share this episode. This is how we have deeper conversations with our friends. If you loved this episode, please leave a review for it in the iTunes store. And as a free gift, I will send you my womb meditation. So this is meditation to connect to your sacred womb space and receive your answers. Because Danielle and I are actually going to Guatemala to study womb healing as well. So leave a review. Tell me what you loved about this episode, any other topics you'd love, questions you have, and take a screenshot and email it over to me at sahara@IamSaharaRose.com. You can find that email and all the links I mentioned today in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.
Trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen. Surrender, let go. Surrender, let go. So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner